The Dulkrani Supremacy's invasion fleet emerged from faster-than-light transit in perfect formation, 847 warships arranged in the killing pattern that had conquered 16 species across 4 stellar sectors. War Sovereign Kasek watched from the bridge of his dreadnought Unbroken Dominion as Earth's outer defensive grid came into scanning range. 42 orbital platforms. 18 patrol frigates. 3 heavy cruisers limping on reactor repairs. The human homeworld lay exposed, ripe for subjugation. Pitiful, Kasek said, mandibles clicking in satisfaction. Begin broadcast. Standard terms. The communications officer transmitted across all frequencies. Primitive species of Sol 3. Your military assets are catalogued and insufficient. Surrender your industrial facilities and genetic databases. Comply within 6 standard rotations or face orbital bombardment. The Dulkrani Supremacy does not negotiate. On Earth's command station Gibraltar, Commander Marcus Torres watched the alien fleet spread across his tactical display like an infection. Each red icon represented firepower that could crack a continent. His own forces, scattered green pinpricks, looked pathetic by comparison. "They're not even bothering with evasive positioning," Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka observed from tactical. "Full broadside formation. They think this is already over." Torres leaned back in his chair, a slight smile touching his lips. "What's the status on Iron Covenant?" "Still dark, sir. Holding position at Romeo 7, exactly where you wanted her. They've passed within 40,000 kilometers twice. No indication they've detected her." "Good." Torres opened a channel to Earth's Planetary Defense Command. "Admiral Chen, they've delivered terms. 6 hours to surrender." Chen's voice came back steady. "And our response, Commander?" "Tell them we need 12 hours to discuss terms with our governments. Buy us time." Across the void, Kasek received Earth's reply with contempt. 12 hours. These mammals thought they could bargain, delay, hope for some miracle that wouldn't come. The Dulkrani had fought species with energy shields that could withstand stellar radiation, kinetic barriers that could deflect relativistic projectiles. Humanity's chemical rockets and primitive fusion drives were museum pieces. "Grant them 6 hours, Kasek ordered. Let them waste time deliberating. It changes nothing." Tactical, what's the status of their defensive platforms? 42 confirmed, War Sovereign. Tracking indicates fusion-tipped missiles, magnetic accelerator cannons. Effective range approximately 90,000 kilometers. Our shields will render them irrelevant. Kasek's tactical display showed Earth's defenses in crystalline clarity. Every platform's position, every patrol route, every weapon hardpoint, all mapped with Dulkrani precision. Deploy screening elements. Cruiser groups Theta through Epsilon. Advance to engagement range but hold fire. Let them see our strength. 300 warships broke formation, accelerating toward Earth's orbital space. The maneuver was textbook, the same approach that had worked against the Valorian Concordat, the Thracian enclaves, the mech collectives. Overwhelming force applied with calculated precision. On Gibraltar, alarms cascaded across every console as the Dulkrani vanguard approached. 300 ships inbound, Tanaka reported, her voice tight. Estimated weapons range in 45 minutes. Torres watched the enemy formation with the calm of a man who'd spent 6 years preparing for exactly this moment. Rotate platforms Alpha through Kappa to defensive posture. All frigates fall back to secondary positions. Make it look panicked. Sir. They're testing us, Lieutenant. Expecting us to either fold completely or make some desperate last stand. We give them neither. Show fear, show disorganization, but don't collapse. Not yet. Earth's defensive forces scattered, platforms rotating to face the oncoming threat, frigates burning hard for deeper positions. To dull Crani sensors, it looked like prey preparing to flee. Humans are repositioning, Casek's tactical officer reported. Defensive posture, no aggressive moves. Analysis indicates low morale and poor coordination. As expected. They've never faced a true military power. Kasek opened a fleet-wide channel. All vessels, maintain formation. Cruiser groups, achieve fire control solutions on all human military assets. When they refuse surrender, I want their orbital infrastructure neutralized within 8 minutes. But something nagged at Kasek as he studied the tactical display. The human response seemed almost rehearsed. Not panicked enough. Not chaotic enough for a species facing extinction. Communications, have we detected any human transmissions beyond standard military channels? Negative, War Sovereign. Very light traffic actually. Less than anticipated for a species under invasion. Strange. Every species they'd conquered had filled the electromagnetic spectrum with desperate communications, governments arguing, military units requesting orders, civilians broadcasting final messages. Earth's airwaves were almost quiet. On Gibraltar, Torres reviewed the timeline. The dull Crani cruisers would reach firing positions in 38 minutes. Earth's platforms would launch their defensive volley in 39 minutes. And Iron Covenant would decloak in 40. Chief Olafson, Torres said into his comm, "How's our ghost doing?" From deep in Gibraltar's engineering section, the gravelly voice of the chief engineer responded. "Power signatures contained, sir." She could park next to their flagship and they wouldn't spot her. Question is, when she drops that cloak, can she handle what comes next? She was built for one thing, Chief. Let's hope she's good at it. You're betting Earth on experimental technology, Commander. No, Torres said quietly. I'm betting on preparation. We've had 43 years since the dull Crani sent their first expansion probe through our sector. 43 years watching them conquer, studying every battle, analyzing every tactic. He pulled up a file on his secondary screen, thousands of hours of intercepted dull Crani communications, battle recordings, tactical assessments. They fight the same way every time. Overwhelming force, shield superiority, energy weapons. They've won so often they've stopped adapting. Tanaka glanced at her commander. And we've built our entire strategy around fighting them specifically. Exactly. The dull Crani cruisers continued their advance, spreading into a perfect firing arc. Kasek watched with satisfaction as human platforms rotated to defensive positions, frigates retreating to higher orbits. Everything proceeding according to doctrine. Weapons range in 10 minutes, his tactical officer announced. All batteries charged. Targets locked. Hold fire until I give the command. Let them sweat. But on Gibraltar, no one was sweating. Torres stood from his command chair and moved to the tactical display, studying the dull Crani formation with the eye of a man who'd memorized their every move. They're in position, Tanaka said softly. Torres nodded. Ensign Keita, tight beam to Iron Covenant. Authentication code Omega Black 7. The young communications officer's hands moved across her console. Channel open, sir. Encrypted and secured. Iron Covenant, this is Gibraltar Actual. You are weapons free. Execute Protocol Phantom. 40,000 kilometers from the dull Crani flagship, in the absolute darkness between Earth and its moon, something that had been invisible for 6 hours began to move. The TCSS Iron Covenant had been built in the deepest orbital shipyard humanity could construct, assembled from alloys designed to absorb every spectrum of radiation, coated in metamaterials that bent detection waves like water around stone. She was the first of her kind, a warship designed not to fight fair, but to fight smart. And she'd been watching. Captain Sarah Chen, no relation to the Admiral, though the coincidence amused her, sat in Iron Covenant's darkened bridge, surrounded by her crew of 60 hand-picked specialists. Disengage active cloak. All weapons to standby. Let's introduce ourselves. The ship's stealth systems shut down in sequence, and suddenly 847 Dulkrani warships detected what their sensors screamed was impossible. A human vessel, massive and angular, had materialized less than 40,000 kilometers from their flagship. Not approaching from Earth. Not emerging from FTL. Simply, appearing. On unbroken Dominion's bridge, alarms shrieked. Contact. Unidentified vessel bearing, it's human. Range 40,000 kilometers from our position. Casek's mandibles snapped shut in shock. That's impossible. We've been scanning continuously. There's nothing there. Sensor logs confirm, War Sovereign. The vessel was not present 8 seconds ago. Then it just arrived via faster than light. Negative, sir. No FTL signatures. No thermal bloom. It's as if, the tactical officer's voice cracked. War Sovereign, the vessel is broadcasting an identification. Put it through. A human voice, female and absolutely calm, filled the bridge of every Dulkrani warship in the invasion fleet. Dulkrani supremacy. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran combat spaceship Iron Covenant. You are in violation of Sol system sovereignty. Power down your weapons and prepare to be escorted out of our space, or we will interpret your presence as an act of war. Kasek stared at the tactical display where a single human vessel, laughably outnumbered, had appeared from nowhere and issued an ultimatum to his entire fleet. The audacity was almost amusing. Almost. Analysis of the human vessel, he demanded. Running scans now, War Sovereign. Hull composition unknown, power signature unlike anything in our database, weapons ports visible but type uncertain. Displacement approximately, by the void. Mass readings indicate a vessel larger than our dreadnoughts. Kasek's confidence wavered. One ship. They detected one ship. But if humanity could hide one vessel so completely, how many others might be watching? On Gibraltar, Torres smiled as Iron Covenant sensor data flooded his tactical display. Every Dulkrani ship had shifted from aggressive advance to defensive posture. Formation coherence dropping. Communication traffic spiking. Fear spreading through their ranks like poison. They're trying to decide if we're bluffing, Tanaka said. Let them wonder. Torres opened a fleet-wide channel. All human forces, maintain current positions. Do not engage unless fired upon. Iron Covenant has the board. 40,000 kilometers from the Dulkrani flagship, Captain Chen watched her tactical display with predatory focus. Weapons, I want firing solutions on their command ship and every vessel within 30,000 kilometers. Ensign Park, charge the main batteries. Charging, Captain. Primary capacitors at 60% and rising. Chen counted silently. The Dulkrani would make their decision soon, fight or flee. Either way, they were about to learn the first rule of fighting humans. You're never fighting just what you can see. Kasek stared at the impossible human warship on his display. 847 ships under his command. One enemy vessel. The mathematics were obvious. But something ancient in his predator's brain whispered warnings. War Sovereign, his tactical officer said carefully. Orders? Kasek's mandibles clicked as he made his decision. All vessels, weapons free. Target the human warship. Concentrated fire. Turn that presumptuous vessel into debris. 847 ships opened fire simultaneously. And in the void between worlds, Sarah Chen smiled. Evasive pattern delta. Countermeasures active. Return fire. Iron Covenant erupted into motion. The first volley from 847 warships should have vaporized Iron Covenant. Energy beams crossed the void at light speed, plasma torpedoes accelerating to relativistic velocities, missile swarms deploying in lethal clouds. Enough firepower to slag a moon converged on a single point in space. Iron Covenant wasn't there anymore. The ship moved like nothing Kasek had ever seen, no gradual acceleration, no predictable vectors. One moment stationary, the next diving at 40 gravities perpendicular to her previous position, then slashing upward in a trajectory that should have liquefied any crew aboard. 80% of the Dulkrani barrage intersected empty space. The remaining 20% hit countermeasures that bloomed across Iron Covenant's hull like metallic flowers. Ablative plates sheared away, carrying energy beams harmlessly into the void. Electromagnetic chaff scattered plasma torpedoes into divergent spirals. Point defense cannons, hundreds of them, created interlocking fields of fire that shredded incoming missiles into component atoms. Minimal damage, Chen's tactical officer reported. Hull integrity at 96%. Main batteries charged, Captain, Ensign Park announced. Target lock established on flagship and 12 dreadnoughts. Chen's voice cut across the bridge like a blade. Fire. Iron Covenant had been designed around a single revolutionary principle: humanity's enemies relied on energy shields that could deflect or absorb directed energy weapons. So humanity had gone backwards. Way backwards. 24 magnetic accelerator cannons fired simultaneously, each barrel 300 meters long, each projectile a 2-ton slug of depleted uranium traveling at 4% light speed. No exotic particles. No sophisticated energy matrices. Just mass and velocity, the same physics that had killed humans with rocks and arrows for millennia, scaled up to nightmarish extremes. The projectiles crossed 40,000 kilometers in less than 2 seconds. Dulkrani shields, calibrated for energy weapons and plasma, offered no resistance to kinetic impactors. The first slug hit Unbroken Dominion amidships, punched through 16 decks, vaporized on impact with the reactor housing, and sent a pressure wave through the hull that buckled every structural member within 200 meters. The dreadnought didn't explode. It simply came apart, breaking into 3 massive sections that tumbled through space, trailing atmosphere and bodies. 11 more dreadnoughts died in the next 4 seconds. On what remained of his bridge, Kasek hauled himself upright as emergency lighting flickered around him. Half his command staff was dead, the other half struggling with injuries. His fleet's command structure had been decapitated in a single salvo. All vessels, he transmitted on emergency channels. Evasive maneuvers. Concentrate fire on. His tactical display updated, and the words died in his throat. 43 contacts. Human warships, emerging from stealth positions throughout the battle space. Not as large as Iron Covenant, but each one broadcasting the same impossible sensor profile, each one maneuvering with the same physics-defying agility. War Sovereign, his second-in-command, gasped. They've been here the entire time. Watching us. Waiting. On Gibraltar, Torres watched the tactical display bloom with green icons as Earth's actual defensive fleet revealed itself. 43 stealth frigates, each one a smaller version of Iron Covenant, each one carrying enough kinetic firepower to gut a capital ship. How long were they sitting there? Tanaka asked, awe in her voice. 6 days. Since our long-range sensors detected the Dulkrani fleet entering the outer system. Torres opened a fleet-wide channel. All vessels, weapons free. Target priority, capital ships first, then carriers. Leave the escorts, let them run. In orbit around Mars, Captain James Okoye of the TCSS Relentless locked onto a Dulkrani carrier trying to launch fighters. Gunnery, I want that carrier disabled, not destroyed. Targeting their hangar bays. Aye, Captain. Firing. For kinetic rounds, precisely aimed, tore through the carrier's launch systems and detonated the fuel reserves of 43 fighters simultaneously. The explosion ripped through half the ship, leaving it drifting and powerless but intact. Survivors detected, Captain, the sensor officer reported. Good. Let them limp home. Let them tell the story. Across the battle space, Dulcrani ships died in mathematically precise sequences. Earth's stealth fleet had studied every vessel class, memorized every weak point, practiced these kill shots in simulation for years. Reactors hit with surgical precision. Command decks targeted and eliminated. Weapons batteries disabled with single shots. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution. Kasek transferred his command to the cruiser Eternal Triumph, his hands shaking as he tried to salvage the situation. All remaining vessels, form defensive sphere formation. Rotate shields to maximum. Target human ships with concentrated fire. But Dulcrani doctrine, perfected over 16 conquests, assumed enemies fought the same way, energy weapons at energy weapon ranges, shields against shields. The humans ignored every rule. Iron Covenant dove through a formation of destroyers, her point defense systems annihilating incoming fire while her main gun selected targets with predatory patience. Each shot a kill. Each maneuver unpredictable. Each second demonstrating that humanity had built their entire military strategy around fighting this specific enemy. Captain Chen, her communications officer, called out. We're receiving a transmission from the Dulcrani flagship. They're requesting terms. Chen's laugh was cold. Terms? Tell War Sovereign Kasek we'll accept his unconditional surrender in 45 minutes, or we'll finish what we started. Ma'am, they're saying they have the right to. They have the right to die with honor if they keep fighting, or live with shame if they surrender. Those are their options. 45 minutes. Chen out. On Eternal Triumph, Kasek heard the human response and felt something he'd never experienced in 16 campaigns. Helplessness. His fleet, the pride of the Dulcrani supremacy, was being systematically dismantled by a species that supposedly didn't even have functional energy shields. War Sovereign, request permission to withdraw the fleet, his tactical officer pleaded. We've lost 217 vessels. Our formation is collapsing. We can't. If we withdraw, we prove the supremacy is weak. Kasek snarled. Every species we've conquered will see humanity's victory and consider rebellion. We cannot. An explosion rocked the cruiser. On the tactical display, another 6 Dulcrani ships winked out of existence. Meanwhile, Earth's orbital platforms, silent throughout the initial engagement, finally rotated to combat positions. But instead of the fusion-tipped missiles Dulcrani intelligence had catalogued, the platforms deployed something else entirely. Chief Olafsson watched from Gibraltar as the platform's true armament came online. Electromagnetic siege cannons charging. Bet the Dulcrani weren't expecting these. Torres nodded. They scanned our platforms 6 years ago when they sent their probe. We let them see what we wanted them to see. Everything else we built after they left. The platforms fired. Not missiles. Not plasma. Focused electromagnetic pulses that scrambled every unshielded electronic system within their area of effect. Dulcrani ships, their shield generators operating on different principles, found their navigation systems failing, their targeting computers crashing, their communications arrays reverting to static. Blind, confused, and dying, the Dulcrani fleet fragmented. Captain Chen selected another target, a battlecruiser trying to organize a defensive formation. Gunnery, hamstring that ship. Engines and maneuvering only. The battlecruiser's drive section exploded, leaving it drifting helplessly. Across the battle space, similar precision strikes left dozens of Dulcrani vessels crippled but intact, their crews alive to witness the annihilation of their fleet. Kasek watched his tactical display with growing horror. 341 ships destroyed or disabled. Another 200 breaking formation, running for the outer system in desperate retreat. The humans weren't pursuing those. They were letting them go, ensuring witnesses to Dulcrani humiliation. War Sovereign, his communications officer said quietly. The humans are broadcasting on all frequencies. They want us to hear something. The transmission was simple, direct, and devastating. Commander Torres's voice, calm and absolutely confident, speaking to every surviving Dulcrani crew member. Dulcrani supremacy. You came to our home expecting easy conquest. You believed your technology and tactics were superior. You were wrong. We have watched you for 43 years. We studied every battle you fought. We analyzed your weaknesses. And we built our entire military specifically to kill you. A pause. This is what happens when you underestimate a species that evolved by hunting megafauna on a death world. We are persistence predators. We are pack hunters. We prepare. We adapt. And we never, ever surrender our home. On Eternal Triumph, Kassek's remaining crew stared at their displays in silence. The War Sovereign who had conquered 16 species, who had never known defeat, who had believed in Dulcrani supremacy as absolute truth, sat motionless in his command chair. Incoming transmission from Earth, the communications officer whispered. They're counting down. 30 minutes until they resume firing. Our weapons are useless against their tactics, the tactical officer said. Our shields don't stop their kinetics. Our sensors can't track their stealth ships. We have no counter-strategy. Kasek looked at the tactical display one final time. 493 vessels destroyed or crippled. 354 running for their lives. And 54 human ships, barely damaged, circling his remaining forces like sharks scenting blood. He opened a channel to all remaining Dulcrani vessels. All ships. Power down weapons. Disengage drives. Prepare to receive boarding parties. The words tasted like poison. But the alternative was extinction. On Gibraltar, Torres received the Dulcrani surrender with grim satisfaction. All human vessels, cease fire. Maintain combat spacing. Tanaka, coordinate with planetary defense. I want boarding teams ready in 15 minutes. Sir, Tanaka said carefully. Some of the Dulcrani ships are still running for the outer system. Approximately 200 vessels escaping. Torres watched those fleeing contacts on his display. Let them go, Lieutenant. Let them run home and tell their supremacy what happens when you threaten Earth. Let every species in their empire hear that humanity broke the Dulcrani war machine in less than 40 minutes. In the debris field where the battle had raged, Iron Covenant maintained position near the surrendered Dulcrani flagship. Captain Chen opened a channel to what remained of Kassek's command crew. War Sovereign Kasek. This is Captain Chen. You have 48 hours to evacuate your dead, retrieve your survivors, and depart Sol System. Any vessel still in our space after that deadline will be destroyed. You came here to conquer us. Instead, you're going to carry a message back to your supremacy. Kasek's voice, defeated but still proud, responded. What message? Chen's smile was sharp enough to cut vacuum. Tell them humanity is no longer hiding. Tell them we've been preparing for this moment since we detected your first probe. And tell them if they ever return to our system, we won't be as merciful. The channel closed. Across Earth, celebrations began as the news spread, the invasion repelled, the enemy broken, humanity's home defended against impossible odds. But in the command centers and on the warships still maintaining combat positions, the defenders remained vigilant. Because they knew something the celebrating civilians didn't yet understand. The Dulcrani supremacy controlled 400 star systems and had fleets 100 times larger than what they'd sent to Earth. This had been a scouting force, a preliminary invasion meant to test human defenses. And humanity had just revealed every advantage they possessed. Torres stood on Gibraltar's observation deck, watching the wounded Dulcrani vessels begin their evacuation procedures. Behind him, Admiral Chen's voice came over the secure channel. "Marcus, we need to talk about what comes next. The Dulcrani won't let this stand." "I know, Admiral. We've won the battle. But the war." Torres trailed off, watching the stars. "The war is just beginning," Chen finished. "And next time, they'll be prepared for everything we showed them today." Torres nodded slowly. Humanity had spent 43 years preparing for this fight. Now they had perhaps 6 months before the Dulcrani returned with overwhelming force, ready for kinetic weapons and stealth ships and every trick Earth had deployed. The clock was already ticking. Torres was about to respond when every alert on Gibraltar's bridge screamed simultaneously. "Contact!" Tanaka shouted. "Massive energy signatures, War Sovereign Kassek's cruiser is powering weapons." On Eternal Triumph, Kasek had made his calculation. His career was finished. The Dulcrani supremacy would execute him for this defeat regardless of surrender. But he could salvage one thing: intelligence. If he could force the humans to reveal more capabilities, capture their technology, his death might serve the greater empire. "All vessels still combat capable," he transmitted on emergency channels. "Ignore the surrender. Target the human command station. Full weapons release. For the supremacy." 43 Dulcrani ships, damaged but functional, opened fire on Gibraltar. Torres watched the incoming barrage with absolute calm. "Tanaka, defensive measures." "Sir, those ships are inside our kinetic engagement range. We can't." "I didn't say use the fleet, Lieutenant. Activate Fortress Protocol." Tanaka's eyes widened. "Sir, that's not been tested under combat conditions." "Do it. Now." Gibraltar, which the Dulcrani had catalogued as a simple command station, transformed. Armored panels retracted along the station's hull, revealing weapons batteries that dwarfed anything on Iron Covenant. Point defense systems so dense they created overlapping fields of destruction activated in sequence. And from the station's core, a magnetic accelerator cannon 3 times the size of any ship-mounted weapon began charging. "Fortress batteries online," Tanaka reported, wonder in her voice. "All defensive systems active. Main siege cannon at 60% charge." The Dulcrani barrage hit Gibraltar's defensive grid and simply ceased to exist. Hundreds of point defense cannons created a mathematical certainty: nothing could penetrate that volume of fire. Energy beams scattered against electromagnetic barriers. Missiles disintegrated into atomic dust. Plasma torpedoes detonated harmlessly against reactive armor. Gibraltar didn't even shudder. "Main cannon charged," Tanaka said. "Target lock on Eternal Triumph." Torres opened a channel to Kassek's ship. "War Sovereign, you just made your final mistake. You assumed we showed you everything. You were wrong. Again." Gibraltar's siege cannon fired. The projectile was 10 tons of shaped tungsten carbide, accelerated to 8% light speed. It hit Eternal Triumph dead center and didn't just destroy the cruiser, it vaporized it. The kinetic impact released energy equivalent to a small nuclear weapon, and the shockwave tore apart the 6 nearest Dulcrani vessels. Across the battle space, the remaining Dulcrani ships that had followed Kassek's final order stopped firing. Their crews stared at sensors showing Gibraltar, a station they dismissed as a command center, mounting firepower that exceeded their entire remaining fleet. Captain Chen's voice cut across all frequencies, cold and final. "Any other Dulcrani vessel that powers weapons will be destroyed. You have 10 seconds to comply." Every hostile ship went dark. On Iron Covenant, Chen watched the pacified Dulcrani fleet with satisfaction. "Commander Torres, suggest we expedite their departure." I don't trust them not to try something else stupid. Agreed, Captain. All human vessels, escort formation. Any Dulcrani ship that deviates from evacuation trajectory gets disabled. No warnings. The surviving Dulcrani commanders, those few who hadn't followed Kasek's suicidal order, transmitted acknowledgement and began organizing their retreat. They gathered their dead, retrieved escape pods, and prepared for the humiliating withdrawal. Throughout the process, human warships maintained precise formation around them, demonstrating casual superiority with every maneuver. Aboard the Dulcrani cruiser Infinite Glory, Sub-Commander Threekes assumed fleet command by default. He was young for the position, inexperienced, and absolutely terrified. His transmission to the human fleet was carefully worded. Commander Torres. We require 48 hours to complete evacuation as stated in original terms. Torres's response came back immediately. You have 36 hours, Sub-Commander. I suggest you work efficiently. And Threekes? When you return to Dulcrani space, I want you to deliver a message to your high command. Yes, Commander. Tell them humanity has been preparing for this war since we were still using chemical rockets. Tell them we've built weapons they can't imagine, tactics they can't counter, and strategies they can't predict. Tell them Earth is off limits. Forever. And tell them if they ever return to our system, we won't stop at their fleet. We'll follow them home. The channel closed, leaving Threekes staring at his communications panel. The human commander hadn't raised his voice. Hadn't threatened. Had simply stated facts with the confidence of absolute military superiority. 31 hours later, the last Dulcrani vessel cleared Sol System's heliopause, running for their lives. Gibraltar's observation deck filled with off-duty crew watching the retreat. Chief Olafsson stood beside Torres, both men silent as they watched humanity's enemies flee into the darkness. We lost 47 crew, Olafsson said quietly. Across the whole fleet. 47 against their 4,000 confirmed dead and another 6,000 wounded. Torres nodded. Make sure their names go on the memorial. They bought us this victory. You think the Dulcrani will actually stay away? Yes. Because we made sure survivors witnessed every advantage. They'll report back that Earth can hide fleets in stealth, fire kinetics that bypass shields, fortify stations into weapons platforms, and coordinate tactics with precision they can't match. Their high command isn't stupid, they'll calculate the cost of conquering Earth and realize it's impossible. Olafsson grunted. And if they don't? Torres's smile was grim. Then we'll teach them the lesson again. Harder. On Iron Covenant, Captain Chen reviewed the battle analytics with her senior staff. Every engagement, every kill, every maneuver catalogued and analyzed for future reference. Final tally, her XO reported. 493 enemy vessels destroyed. 206 disabled and captured. 248 escaped. Total human losses, 6 frigates damaged, requiring docking. Gibraltar sustained 17 hull breaches, all sealed. Casualties minimal. Minimal, Chen repeated softly. 47 people who won't go home. Document every one of them. I want their families to know they died defending Earth against impossible odds. Yes, ma'am. Chen stood and walked to the viewport, watching Earth rotate peacefully below. Somewhere down there, 6 billion people were celebrating victory, unaware of how close they'd come to extinction before the preparation began. Across the galaxy, in the Deep Space Monitoring Station of the Valorian Concordat, Sensor Master Kellex watched the data packets arriving from their long-range observers near Sol System. Her tentacles trembled as she processed the information. The Dulcrani supremacy, conquerors of 16 species, had been shattered by a species barely 2 centuries into spaceflight. The humans hadn't just won, they'd made it look effortless. Kellex immediately transmitted to Valorian High Command. Update stellar cartography. Sol system, maximum threat. Prohibited zone. Recommend diplomatic contact only, no military presence within 50 light-years. Similar messages spread through communication networks across known space. Species that had considered humanity primitive updated their assessments. Trade routes were quietly adjusted to avoid Sol system. Military planners marked Earth's coordinates in red. The galaxy had a new apex predator, and it had just announced itself with overwhelming force. On Gibraltar, Admiral Chen joined Torres on the observation deck. Both watched the stars in comfortable silence before the Admiral spoke. 43 years of preparation. 6 years of construction. 3,000 engineers and strategists. All for 40 minutes of combat. Worth it, Torres said simply. Completely. But Marcus, we showed them everything. Every advantage. Every tactic. When the Dulcrani return. If they return, they'll bring 10 times the ships and prepare for everything they saw. Torres turned to face the Admiral. Which is why we've already started Project Apex. New stealth technology. Improved kinetics. And something the Dulcrani won't see coming because we haven't even hinted at it. Admiral Chen raised an eyebrow. You're not going to tell me? Compartmentalized, Admiral. You'll know when we need you to know. Torres smiled slightly. Let's just say if the Dulcrani thought our kinetics were impressive, they're going to really hate what we deploy next time. There won't be a next time if we're smart. There won't be a next time because we'll be ready. That's what humans do. We prepare. We adapt. We never stop improving. Torres gestured to Earth below. Every species that's ever tried to conquer us learned the same lesson. We might not be the strongest or the fastest or the most advanced. But we're the most stubborn, the most creative, and the most absolutely unwilling to surrender our home. Admiral Chen nodded slowly. The Dulcrani came expecting easy prey. They found apex predators instead. Across Sol system, human ships maintained patrol patterns, ensuring the Dulcrani wouldn't return. On Earth, defense contractors were already analyzing the battle data, designing improvements, preparing for threats that might never come. Because humanity had learned the most important lesson in the galaxy. Peace comes to those who prepare for war. In the depths of Dulcrani space, 6 weeks later, Subcommander Threekes delivered his report to the High Command. He described Earth's capabilities in clinical detail. The stealth technology. The kinetic weapons. The tactical precision. The absolute determination. When he finished, the chamber sat in shocked silence. Finally, the Supreme War Leader spoke. Mark Sol system as restricted. No Dulcrani vessel will approach within 100 light-years. The humans have earned their sovereignty. The Council transmitted their decision across the Empire. Humanity, the species they'd intended to subjugate, was now forbidden territory. On Gibraltar, Torres received the intelligence report confirming Dulcrani withdrawal with quiet satisfaction. He pulled up a star chart showing Sol system surrounded by an exclusion zone enforced by species that had watched humanity break their conquerors. Earth stood alone. Protected not by treaties or alliances, but by demonstrated capability and absolute resolve. Tanaka approached with a data tablet. Sir, Planetary Defense wants to know when we should stand down from combat alert. Torres looked at the stars, knowing somewhere out there, other species were watching, calculating, deciding whether humanity was prey or predator. We don't, he said quietly. We stay ready. Always. Because the galaxy just learned what happens when you threaten Earth. And we're going to make damn sure they never forget. He turned from the viewport, leaving the stars behind, and walked back to Gibraltar's command center where his crew maintained eternal vigil. Humanity had won its first interstellar war in 40 minutes. The next one, if it came, would be even faster. Because humans don't just win battles. They evolve.